Good morning, sunshines. I wanted to spend the day talking to you about different styles of lighting. Again, we've been talking about the mechanalist approach all semester, and again, hopefully have gotten ingrained in your soul. But just one more time, the mechanalist approach is the 360-degree coverage, where you have two lights from the front at 45 degrees, a warm and a cool, two lights from the sides, a super warm and a super cool that alternate. You have a downlight, you have a backlight. Those become your areas. And then you have the washes, the color washes that give you time of day, that tell you what's going on as far as if there's fires or anything that's going on in the environment. Then you have the practicals that turn on and off, and then you have your specials. So those are the 4 layers of lighting design. Again, nothing brand new. But one of the things we'll talk today about, occasionally you come across problems that require different solutions. Among them, we'll just start with the thrust stage. Here's a little video talking about what the thrust stage is and how it is the same and how it's different.
The proscenium arch space is the most common style of theater arrangement today. Another that is not so common, but in many ways is as old as theater itself, is the thrust space. The thrust is a staging arrangement that has the audience situated on 3 sides of the performance. It's as if the stage was thrust into the audience. The thrust stage is often backed up with a stage house that serves as the background or setting of the thrust stage. The thrust space was popularized during the Elizabethan period when William Shakespeare was writing his plays. Let's take a look at the top view of the thrust space. As you can see, the arrangement is quite different from the proscenium arch space, where the audience and performance are situated on opposite sides of each other. The thrust arrangement allows for many more of the audience to come into closer proximity with the action of the play and, as a result, creates a more intimate feeling. But the thrust arrangement creates different staging requirements than the proscenium arch. On the thrust space, the notion of creating stage pictures will not be effective. Where each audience member has a similar orientation to the proscenium arch stage, the arrangement of the thrust, with its audience on 3 different sides of the action, cannot create a consistent stage picture. On the thrust space, if we put an actor in the down center block, the conditions that made it a strong position on the proscenium arch stage will not apply to the thrust stage. The director staging on the thrust stage often considers the stage as a panorama, with different levels at the front of the stage than at the back of the stage. He also considers the aisles of the house. He may have an actor sitting downstage with his back to an aisle, facing another actor who is standing upstage. This is referred to as the open aisle position. The downstage corners of the thrust space serve as the most effective position for an actor to stand or sit and not hinder the sightlines on the stage. The same can be said of the upstage area. This is almost the opposite case with the proscenium arch space. The thrust space requires much more movement than the proscenium arch space. This is because, in order to allow the best sightline for the audience in all 3 sections of the house to view the actors equally, he must move them in order to engage in a technique we refer to as turning the image around. Because of this, we say that the staging in a thrust space is more active, where the staging on a proscenium arch is more static. That's not to say that there's not an opportunity for much movement on the proscenium arch. It simply isn't as required as it is on the thrust space. This poses a challenge, but also presents an opportunity for creativity. It's no wonder that sword fights, battle scenes, and dances were popular on the Shakespearean stage, as these active scenarios work well on the thrust space. So when directing for the thrust space, the director tries to create an active panorama. He does this by considering the traffic lanes on the thrust space. When traveling on the thrust space, actors may move toward the center and then stop on their mark. The other actors are arranged at different locations so as not to impede the sightlines of the audience that is directly behind them. The actions may move through the outside lanes of the action, but must not stop unless there is an artistic reason for it, because stopping in the lanes can hinder the sightlines for the audience on that side of the stage. Where the design elements on a proscenium arch stage are designed to enhance the creation of a stage picture, the design for a thrust space utilizes the panorama effect. Low set pieces, such as benches or low stools, are situated on the downside area. Taller design elements, such as floor lamps or coat racks, can be situated against the upstage wall. The stagehouse wall at the upstage part of the thrust serves as the only wall on this space, as additional walls would almost certainly impair the audience's sightlines. While the need to move actors around on the stage more often and the restriction of stage scenery as a result of the audience sightline poses a challenge to the director and designer, there are also benefits of staging in the thrust space. This space offers a more intimate feel between the audience and the actors. There is more a sense that the audience is right there with the characters. The thrust also offers the audience a more unique viewing experience. The proscenium arch stage offers a series of stage pictures to its audience. The thrust, on the other hand, offers audiences a series of stage sculptures. This is unlike the experience of the proscenium arch, movies, or television. If well staged, the thrust can offer its audience an intimate and active evening of theater. Well, that's the thrust stage in a nutshell. In the next section, we'll take a look at the arena stage, or theater in the round as it's sometimes called, and consider what staging challenges it poses for the theater and what unique viewing experience it offers its audience. I'll catch you on the other side of the task.
Again, as you can see, the thrust stage provides for some scenery in the background, and so in some the upstage parts of the thrust stage, you can still use your McCandless approach. The problem, of course, is that many of your areas are now downstage of the proscenium, and what is the front light for one audience member is the side light for another and a back light for another. And so what you need to do is do what I call cross lighting, where instead of coming at it with 2 from the front, 2 from the side, and 1 from the back, you just, and downlight, you still have the downlight per each area, but you just attack it with 4 lights from the side, from around to make a little cross. So you'll have 2 front lights and 2 back shoulder kickers, I guess is the way to describe it. And then those shoulder kickers become the front light for the section to the audience left, and the shoulder kicker on the other side becomes the front light for the audience right, and then you alternate warm and cool and cool. Yes, that's what I mean by cross lighting. Now, does that give you side lighting-ish? Does it give you back lighting-ish? Is it as easily done or as good as the McCandless system? I'm going to say no, because again, the actors are in a different space. Now, one of the other things about thrust, as we talked about in the video, you'll have the entrances from the audience. And so as opposed to proscenium, where you don't really have to pay attention to that area, once you get to thrust, and especially when you get to arena, you have the same opportunity. The lighting from the entrance from the aisles is going to have to be, you have to pay attention to it. It may not be an entire area in the sense that you have to have 4 lights, sort of cross lighting and a down light, but you need to have at least a light that comes from behind them as they walk up or down the aisle, and then a light coming from the stage as they enter the stage. It's going to happen and thrust stage and arena staging, that's where the entrances are, and once you enter, people always stop there and give speeches. It's a great place to give speeches in that type of environment. So just plan and prepare for it. Now if that wants to go ahead and make that an entire area, again, that's up to you. But again, it's just something different that you have to address in thrust staging that you don't have to address in proscenium staging that we've been discussing all semester. All right, here's a little video about arena staging and how it is a little different than thrust and or proscenium staging.
Okay, now we move on to the third type of theater space utilized today. I'll be honest with you, this is one of my favorite of the theater spaces. I believe that the arena stage offers the most creative opportunities for live theater today. The arena theater is also often called theater in the round. The first professional theater in the round was established in the U.S. in 1947. There have been several that have cropped up across the United States ever since then. The arena stage is surrounded by the audience. Sometimes the stage is round, sometimes it's square. The basic configuration of this space as far as the director is concerned is that the space is completely surrounded by the audience with 4 aisles coming up through the audience and leading to the stage. In essence, the stage is surrounded on 4 sides. There is no stage house from which the actors may make their entrances and exits. The only access they have to the stage is through the aisles. Where is the strongest block on the arena stage? Students will often say the center block is the strongest. However, it's only strong for the audience member who the actor at center stage is facing. The other audience members are looking at the actor's back. A very weak position in this regard. There isn't a strong block on the arena stage in the same way that there is for the proscenium arch space. Like the thrust space, the arena space isn't trying to create a stage picture. It too is creating a series of stage sculptures. Also, like the thrust space, the arena requires a lot of action. There is no opportunity for an actor to stay in one place for too long without the action becoming particularly static. The main staging convention for the arena space is often referred to as the clock and aisle technique of staging. The stage floor, rather than being charted with 9 arbitrary blocks in the way that the proscenium arch is considered as a clock. The outer locations on the stage are referred to by such terms as the 9 o'clock position, the 3 o'clock position, and so forth. Actors move on the stage either in clockwise or counterclockwise directions. The aisles are very important in the arena theater. The open aisle position that we referred to when we learned about the thrust space is very important in the arena stage. And since there are 4 open aisle positions, it is common that we find the actors on the arena stage standing at the outside of the stage space facing inward with their backs to one of the 4 aisles. The center stage of the arena space is an important traffic area of the arena stage. The actors are either making a curved movement at the periphery of the stage called a swing out move, or will move from one aisle to another by curving their move in toward center and then to a different aisle, creating a swing-in move. When 2 actors are sharing the stage on an arena space, they can't create an imaginary triangle on the floor like the actors of a proscenium arch space do. This would have the effect of the actors standing at center stage with their back to half the audience. The actors on the arena stage move their feet in a position referred to as twist the pairs. They turn so that one actor is facing one side of the audience and the other actor is facing the other half, so that even if the audience is looking at the back of one actor, they are still looking at the front of the other actor. This creates a staging effect that is known as the over-the-shoulder look. The over-the-shoulder look is a familiar composition created in film and television. There is a real challenge when it comes to designing a set for the arena stage. Since there is no conventional way to create a scenic wall on the arena stage without hindering the sightlines of a large part of the audience, the set designer needs to creatively suggest a wall, doorway, or windows in this setting. He will need to create this illusion by placing low furniture such as backless benches at the edges of the arena. The chandelier is an effective set element on any stage, but works particularly well on the arena stage. You will find a set designer for the arena stage will be doing a lot of hanging of scenery in order to create the right atmosphere without hindering sightlines. Now, the biggest advantage of staging a play on the arena stage is that it brings the most members of the audience into close proximity to the action of the play, and, as a result, tends to be the most intimate of the theater spaces. While the restrictions of the space on the creation of scenery can work as a disadvantage, it can also challenge a designer to come up with inventive ways to create a stage set. This unique stage space can present challenges in every respect that will bring out the most creative in a theater artist. So why is the arena space my own personal favorite? Because in my opinion, I don't believe that there is a space that more appropriately presents theater's main art object, dramatic action, more effectively. The proscenium space is still the most popular space, but it presents live action the same way that film and television do, behind a picture frame. And frankly, through the use of close-ups and tracking shots that have the ability to follow action such as chase scenes for what seems like miles, it can use the picture frame more effectively. Since live theater's emphasis is on the human experience, it seems only natural that the space that brings the most of the audience to the humans on stage will be most effective. And the orientation of the actors to the audience is more like observing action as we do in real life. In my book, these things make the arena stage superior to the others. Of course, not everyone agrees with me. Well, that's all for theater space. It's time now to complete your task for this section. We'll see you next time.
Again, one of the big things about arena staging is that you're going to have minimal background, minimal sets, because you have audience members on all four sides. Somebody is going to get blocked by a couch or back of a couch, and so you have chaise lounges. Instead of having doors, you have projections, you have gobos, windows, that sort of thing. So anything that you can think of that you can possibly get away with not having a physical structure that you can use for lighting, it comes onto your shoulders as a lighting designer how to approach that a lot of times. And again, you now have four entrances from the audience to deal with, and you're going to find that especially in arena staging, they may actually have midpoints in the aisles. So now instead of just having the entrance where the aisle becomes to the stage, in arena staging about halfway down the aisle, a lot of times they will have actors have specific spots that they will stop in the aisle. Now, I'm not saying it never happens in proscenium stages, because people are becoming more and more accustomed to lighting and directing in arena stages and in thrust stages. Directors have transferred that into proscenium staging a lot of times where they will use the aisles. But typically, aisles in proscenium stages don't access the stage. So again, one of the things a set designer often will do if that type of environment is needed is they will supply a staircase. If you ever see a ground plan that has a staircase in a proscenium space, just know as a lighting designer, you're gonna have to deal with the aisles and how to light the aisles, okay? That's the biggest thing. And again, the more that you are dependent, the scenery is dependent on the lighting designer to interpret, the more responsibility you have about providing the environment, the mood. It just puts an extra onus on making sure that that is all correct and says the things that they need to say, as opposed to you might be able to get away with some, not necessarily having the exact right time of day in a proscenium stage because you have the rest of the set to tell you what time of day it is. And arena staging, and especially, but thrust staging as well, you really need to get time of day and that sort of stuff correct. Yes. The next thing we're talking about is ballet. Again, you can, just because I'm talking about it, it's called zone lighting, where instead of having areas, little circles, you light zones. You have what's called N1, which would be the first set of legs. in 2 be the second set of legs, in 3 the third, in 4. And again, it's not like in musicals, a lot of times on proscenium stages, you'll have zone lighting because again, in musicals you have a lot of dance. But it's just that in zone lighting, as opposed to area lighting where actors typically will stay on one part of the stage, in zone lighting and dance particularly, you're going to have an incredible amount of movement back and forth across the stage. And so instead of just lighting in particular individual areas, it's just easier to light zones. The other thing is that the key lights, when you're lighting in zone, become the side lights. Again, because the biggest thing in ballet you're more interested in and seeing is the leg. And so you'll have shin busters, you'll have mid lights, you'll have lights that are gonna hit stage right, stage center, and stage left on the booms, so that each light gets a little bit higher so that the sides are lit. And again, you're gonna alternate warm and cool. It may be that you alternate warm and cool on the way down, or warm and cool stage right, stage left, depending on how you wanna design the lights. But what you wanna see, again, is the leg work, and especially with tutus, with the ladies in tutus, having that shin buster down there to get the leg underneath the skirt is imperative. And again, dancers have to be aware that when they get off stage, they're running into light booms. Trust me, they know it. And you have to be aware that a lot of times dancers will use your booms to stretch on. And so sometimes the lights will start shaking and you'll say, why are my lights shaking? Well, it's because the dancers are back there stretching and doing things and using the pole that is your light boom for stretching. So there are just things that are interesting like that happen. But here's a little video on ballet and exactly what it looks like and how you can work as a light designer.
We're ready when you are, Maestro.
Light is to dance like water is to fish. It creates the mood, it creates an environment, it makes commentary on space and time, and without it, would the dance be interesting? Sure, dance is always interesting, but the light is what gives it kind of a character and a place. I'm Mark Stanley. I'm head of the MFA Design and Production program, as well as resident designer for New York City Ballet. Let's go to Q1 if we're already at New York City Ballet. The light is oftentimes the only scenic element. You have the music and you have the steps. So what I need to find is sort of a visual world in which those two things can live. If you think about a picture frame, a lot of dance, theater in general, takes place within a frame. And within that frame, you have things you want to highlight, things you want to create tension with. And the tools we do that with are color, angle, intensity, movement. The more layers you make, the more interesting it becomes. Go to Q4 again. The light plot has to accommodate between 30 and 40 ballets within one season. So there's a lot of flexibility involved. Looking into the wings, you'll see that there's lights from almost 30 feet up all the way down to just 1 foot off the floor. These low lights, we call them shins or shin busters. It's the one that dancers are most likely to run into. Working your way up, you get what I call the Balanchine washes. Those cover the whole stage and give the space a lot of intensity and a lot of energy. And it's really a very favorable angle for the dancer's body when they're in space. Mixed into all this lighting is a whole new set of computerized lighting. We call it automated fixtures or moving lights. All those different angles provide us with a variety of color and shape and shadow. There is a philosophy in lighting design that gets kind of passed down through the generations where they say the good lighting goes unnoticed. I think lighting should be noticed, but I don't want to be distracted from the story by it, even if it's not a legitimate linear story. And that's the goal, right? Is that when you get to the end of the piece, you understand what the journey was. That's what makes us tick. That's the thing we like the most.
Yes. Again, it was one necessarily focused directly on designing lights for how you design them, but it did give you a little sense of the look of what a ballet looks like. But the biggest thing, again, your front lights become your as opposed to in canvas, where you have your fill and your focus from the front. The lights that become the most important in zone lighting are from the side. And then the front lights become the fill lights, just to give you a little bit of face. Again, it's not like you don't look at the face in ballet, but what you're more interested in ballet is the leg work and all that sort of stuff. The next thing we're going to talk about is this little thing, I call it jewel lighting, Jewel. It's called a lot of things, but especially if you have limited amount of instruments, as opposed to having, the biggest difference is as opposed to having two front lights at 45 degrees as in McCandless, you just have one front light from straight on. Especially in concerts where you're going to have a drummer sitting at the drum set and a bass player who's just going to stand there and play the bass, and a guitar player, they're never going to move. Especially on things like that, that jewel lighting works very nice because you just have one light hitting dead on, no color. Yes? And again, if you're talking about limited instrumentation, you may have a down light, you may have a backlight, you may have side lights, but the one key thing with jewel lighting is that you just have that one light from the front that pops the character from the rest of the stage. Again, or the drummer or the act, whatever's going on. A lot of times in jewel lighting you will have, or in concert lighting, you'll have a spotlight. If the person moves a lot, you can have them follow around in the follow spot. The great thing about people like the boss, Bruce Springsteen, is that even though he gets very passionate about his music because his microphone is dead center, he doesn't really move around a lot. He stands there and just sings at the microphone. Now, there are people that are out there doing dancing and shaking and all that sort of stuff that you have to have more lighting for. But jewel lighting is, again, oftentimes used for, and again, you can layer it. You could add the idea, the concept of jewel lighting to your McCandless. You could have, if you have the instrumentation, the two fronts that are warm and cool, and then add a jewel special that to each area, so that you can punch that area with a little bit of no color light just to make it even brighter, stand out even more. So again, that's an approach that can be used in addition to or instead of the McCandless system. Outdoor theater is its own beast. Here's a little introductory video to was it Song of the South? What was this? What's the
Lost Colony?
Lost Colony. Here's a little video to Lost Colony, just in case you've never seen outdoor drama. The biggest thing is it happens outdoors, but enjoy.
Hello, I'm Lindy Fay here with director Robert Richmond in Manio, North Carolina, here to talk to you about a 400-year-old mystery, the Lost Colony. Robert, so many people have not seen an outdoor drama. Can you tell us what makes this so unique and special?
Well, exactly that it is an outdoor drama, and you have the opportunity to sit outside under the stars and watch a fabulous play.
The show was written 7 decades ago. Is it still really relevant to today's audiences?
Oh, absolutely. The advances over those 7 decades in modern technology are quite incredible. Now, the lighting, the surround sound, the costumes, and of course the pyrotechnics are incredible.
How many actors or performers appear at any given time on stage?
There are 86 people in the company and 111 in the cast and crew total.
You know, Robert, I really hate to admit this, but when I was growing up, I really wasn't a big fan of history. But when my parents brought me to see The Lost Colony, it really opened up the history books for me. Is it something that the family can still see together?
Yes, there is something in this show for absolutely everyone.
The tobacco plant, sacred to the Indians. Also, an humble root, the potato.
Who is this Simon Fernando that you should listen to him? A Spaniard with a Spanish name.
Wow, Robert, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Listen, to learn more about this show, visit thelostcolony.org for showtime and tickets. It's a show you don't want to miss. Get your ticket today.
Again, they didn't do a whole lot of time on the lighting, but one of the biggest things you're going to find outdoors is park cans. Everything is park cans, and the reason for it is because it could rain like crazy. Do you try and cover the instrument? Sure. Does water still get in? Absolutely. Especially on the seashore where you've got all that salt water, you just have it's in the atmosphere. it's more humid, and other instruments rust and break down and don't last long. Park hands, but they're easy to focus. They're very easy to put color in, all those sort of things. So even if they get knocked down or crash or whatever, a lot of times they'll be on winches that you can lower, hand winches and electric winches. So you'll lower when the storm comes in, and then raise it back up when the storm is over, that sort of thing. So that'll help protect things. But again, outdoor lighting is just, you're attempting to do the same thing in principle. It's just the instrumentation is different, and so therefore the effect is different. Yes. Then the last thing today, a little video about concert lighting. I really do like this video because it really does go through the entire idea of how this trusses work with this concert lighting. But you'll see it's a lot more animated, automated fixtures, especially in today's world where there's enough money for all that sort of stuff on the trusses. But enjoy this little video on concert lighting.
As a lighting programmer and operator, there are a few shows I really look forward to every year in Seattle. Bumbershoot is one of the oldest festivals in the Seattle area, and it takes place at the Seattle Center. This year I was contracted by R90 Lighting to be the programmer and operator for the Key Arena stage. In this video I'm going to be showing you a little bit behind the scenes stuff, a little bit of actual showtime things, and some pre-production stuff as well. And for those of you who don't know, a bumbershoot is really just a fancy, stuck-up, pretentious word for umbrella, which is really fitting for this show because it was a complete downpour on my way there. I got the credentials, now we're gonna head over to the arena and flash some lights. So there's nobody here yet, and it's really rainy, and hopefully they don't shut down the outdoor stages because that'd be a big bummer. It's a big waste of money for all the production. But I guess on the bright side, that means everybody would come into the arena to see the shows in there, and that's where I'm going to be. Seems like we've been out here before. The last couple of weeks, it seems. I've done, I think, 3 or 4 shows out here. I've actually never been over here. I've never seen these sculptures before. It's like some Hershey's Kisses over here, and a monument to Neil deGrasse Tyson, I think. Is that what that is in the middle there? Back at the Key. Going in the back way. So we're here in the arena, and one of the guest LDs is doing their pre-programming. So I figured I would go on stage and show you around a little bit, show you what our rig looks like. Instead of trying to point out to you exactly what the design looks like in real life, I figured I would just pull up the Capture 3D file and give us a little virtual tour and show you exactly where everything is on the rig and how it's laid out. This isn't the full rendering view, this is just the custom layers view, so I can custom color any set of objects that I import here, and it just helps give a slight distinction between fixture types and how everything's laid out at a quick glance. All of the fixtures in this lavender blue color are the Elation 5R beam extremes. The yellow blocks are Atomic 3000 strobes. These green strips are Elation color choruses. They're like a knockoff of the Chroma Q Color Force, and the 48 meaning that it's a 48-inch long version. These large seafoam colored fixtures are Martin Mac Viper profiles, and the little red ones here are the Martin Mac 101s, little moving wash light. And we do have a small ground package that kind of stayed with the house system. Most times tours will bring in supplementary lighting systems that easily roll onto place on the ground, and we included a house package as well, just to give a little bit of extra lighting punch for the acts that didn't bring their own ground package. All of these things on the ground, with the exception of the 5R beams, are on rolling risers so that they can easily roll in and roll out for quick changeovers when we have to go from, say, a DJ on the DJ riser with the DJ wrap LED wall to a full band with multiple risers and their own ground package. This is a slightly older version. If you'll notice, the screen in the back is a lot larger in this version, and in real life we ended up splitting up the screens and putting them more in small sections around where the lights are as well, just kind of dead hung from the E-type Christie truss that we were using. But the lighting more or less is pretty much the same as ended up in real life here. And don't ask me what this performer was doing or who booked them or what it was. I was really confused by this whole situation, but I was asked like 5 minutes before this guy got on the stage riser behind me to point some lights at him so that he could do his performance. So there's that. So in this part of the video, you're actually seeing some lasers that are being shot straight up into the ceiling in front of the stage, just right in front of where the performers are. And this is for pretty lights. They almost always bring their own production and have all sorts of lasers and fancy things that nobody else really has. A lot of the headlining acts that come through the Key Arena stage have their own touring LDs, but for the acts that don't, I get to run lights for them on my file. And occasionally there are some LDs who show up without a tour file and want to use my file instead. So I usually spend about 30-45 minutes before the doors open with each of the guest LDs, showing them where everything is on my show file and making sure they're comfortable running it. And then they usually just run the show just fine off of my file. They don't have to do any programming. It's a nice way to save us both some time.
Alright, so since I got a little bit of time in between acts here, I want to show you my color setup page. Pretty cool. So this is how I have my MA laid out. So all my colors are on screen too. I have all of my positions in a grid over here by type. So my whole show file is like spots, beams, washes in that order. And then these are my movements. So you got like circles, pans, tilts, all that shit, and then different modifiers for those. And then over there I have my beam effects like gobos and prisms, all that shit. And then all my like stage look effects.
I've been getting a lot of questions in the comment sections of a lot of these lighting videos asking me to kind of explain how I have everything set up on my screens, what the faders do. And once I have my new show file fully figured out, I'm going to be doing a full video on that, but I just wanted to show you this sample section of me doing lights for Marshmallow, and I'll kind of talk my way through it here. So this breakdown marks the first part of a new track. So in my head, I'm going to be thinking what sort of colors, what sort of shapes, beam effects, and movements that I want to be using when the drop goes into the full part. So I'm pre-selecting in advance all the colors, positions, and during this build-up, I'm just kind of doing really smooth, easy to look at things that fit the flow of the music, and preparing for the big drop where everything kind of goes full blast. I think that color and movement are the two most important things when it comes to matching the mood of a certain section of a track. So those are the first two things I concentrate on. You can see me selecting colors on my color picker on the right screen, and in the center screen I'm choosing bass positions and then effect modifiers to kind of move around those bass positions. And while I'm doing that, I also have a even odd type button that allows me to flash in half of the rig and then flash the other half of the rig to the beat. And it's actually a pair of buttons. So I'm holding down one button and then tapping the other one to the beat, and it makes the lights flash off and on in a particular pattern on the rig that I've pre-programmed. And right before the drop hits, I pull my main faders down to hide the fact that I've already enabled the movements and they're ready to fire. So then all I have to do is slide all those faders back up on the drop, and then you have the result. And then it's as simple as letting this effect chain go and then hitting strobes to the beat and, you know, hitting blinders to interact with the crowd a little bit. It's really not that difficult once it's all programmed. And I was really excited because I got to see Porter Robinson live. The last time I saw him, he was like a really small artist playing like 500 capacity venues. So this is really cool. Show is wrapping up. I wanted to take a second to kind of show you the rig up close. It's really cool because the design is like an old school rock and roll type rig with lots of grouped together fixtures fanned out. So, you know, it creates for some really cool looks. We had one of these 5Rs during the show, 5R Extremes. It's actually, where is it? That one, right there. The color wheel just kept like rotating and rotating. And even though we tried like resetting it like 6 or 7 times, it just kept rotating for whatever reason. So that was kind of a bummer. It was like the last act that started doing it. So that's something we'll have to take back to the shop and figure out. And these wings on this arena stage, just like totally made for some awesome side lighting. And we definitely need to do more of it. But one huge bummer about this is there was no dedicated front light. So we ended up using like 6 of those Vipers as pretty much dedicated front light for all the non-DJ acts, which is kind of a waste of a $8,000 light, if you ask me. And that's gonna wrap things up for this video as well. Make sure to...
All right, the biggest thing to notice is the haze. Concert lighting is all about seeing the light, and so having the atmosphere filled with haze is almost essential. Because without that, 90% of what you just saw doesn't have any effect whatsoever. So you really got to have the haze to fill the room. Again, all these approaches are they're different slightly because of what you're doing and why you're doing it. But there are different approaches that you can use and pick and choose to have different alternatives for ways of lighting the stage. The biggest thing in dance, for instance, is a lot of times you have zero scenery. And so finding ways from concert lighting to light the backdrop or to make things interesting, even though you don't need the lights, for instance, to light the ballerinas, you could use the moving lights to provide the entertainment to the audience that a set would normally do. But because you don't have a set, you have the moving lights, or you have some gobo presentations on the backdrop, anything like that you can do to improve the visual stimulus is going to be applauded for the most part. Again, there are different directors, different choreographers who have got different visions, so all of it needs to be in conjunction with your collaborative team so that you're not overpowering everything. But again, here's just some alternatives that you can have as you approach the rest of your design career. All right, have a great day. Keep working on your final projects. Yes? All right, thank you all.